Welcome to Exploring the Paranormal. Hosted by Heather Leigh, PhD, Exploring the Paranormal offers a new, fresh look into paranormal research. Join Heather as she discusses some of the many haunted locations worldwide, discusses why these locations are haunted, hear from paranormal researchers about their personal experiences at these locations. Additionally, Heather takes a journey into the science behind the paranormal, discussing topics such as thermodynamics and the Heisenberg principle, and how they both affect paranormal activity. Now, your host of Exploring the Paranormal, Dr. Heather Leigh.
Good morning, everyone, and I am super excited to be here on a Tuesday morning with you. As always, make sure you say hello, let us know you're here, let us know you're watching. You could always ask any questions you have about the paranormal, but today's topic will be about the Hatman experiences happening all around the world. Super excited. I have a long list of questions for my guest today, and I'm sure you guys will have your list of questions too. But before we bring Philomena on, real quick, some news on haunted Florida lighthouses. I just received the copy to do my final proofs on it. So you guys, that is coming along and will be ready September 11th. So if you guys want to pre-order it, you can go to arcadiapublishing.com, or you can go to Amazon and pre-order it as well. Or let me know and I will write your name down. And when I have my copies in hand, I will make sure I reach out to you to get that autographed copy out to you. And if you guys know, I know Lee has shared several different she's shared information regarding a ghost town here in Florida. But if you guys have any ghost towns you want me to check out here in Florida, let me know, because that is my next project, which will be done at the end of next month. And then real quick, tomorrow night, don't forget, hosting a paranormal event on Ghost Education 101. I will have Steve Dills and Chris Vaughn of Transcend Paranormal. They host some amazing events, and they are going to share all of their inside tips, tricks, and secrets to hosting a successful event. And then one more show announcement. If you guys have not seen, Passport to the Paranormal will be hosted Thursday nights from 10 p.m. Eastern and 9 p.m. Central. It'll be hosted by myself and Joe Frankie. We are working on our schedule and what we're going to be talking about right now. So look forward to that one. That is going to be a successful show. So to get started, I scrolled too fast down my notes. Okay, I do have Philomena Thomas, who is she works on the Hatman Project with Pastor Timothy Brown Jr. She owns Project U.M.P.R.A, and that they work together to deal with that. And basically, I'm going to let my guest talk about everything going on. The Hatman Project is, like I said, I'll let her do it, but it's researching the rise in Hatman phenomena that's been happening lately in the past couple decades. So go ahead and we'll welcome Philomena to the show.
Hello, Dr. Landon. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Thank you for joining. And I know you had mentioned that Pastor Brown cannot be here today. Hope he feels better.
And
Gets well. And I will have him on in the future. Definitely.
Wonderful.
Looking forward to that.
Wonderful.
And everything. So, and real quick, hello to everybody in the chat. I see you guys commenting. So happy to have everybody here. And basically what I want to know before we get started is what is the Hatman Project exactly? Because we've all heard stories of the Hatman, the shadow figure that appears with the hat. But what exactly is your project and what got you started with it?
Okay, great. So the Hatman Project is owned by Pastor Timothy Brown Jr. of Texas. And his project is a 20-year study of Hatman sightings around the world. He actually started a website called thehatmanproject.com. And he has been collecting stories from China, Paraguay, Brazil, the United States, every religion, every age group, every political climate, every nation. It's amazing. We have thousands of stories. And so Pastor, from the biblical Christian perspective, is getting ready to write a book called The Hatman Revealed, in which he reveals his thoughts and research related to the Hatman phenomenon. From his perspective, he believes that the Hatman is a watcher as described in the Bible. And so that's where the book's perspective comes from. He's also just been approved by Village Roadshow Films for the first full budget movie about this subject, the Hatman Project. So I'm very excited for him. He has a great message. I hope it gets out there.
Yep, exactly. And actually, you answered 2 of my questions that I had on my list.
If I talk too much, tell me to be quiet. It's fine.
No. The more you talk, the less I work. And so what got you involved personally? I know you had sent me an audio of your story, and it was very interesting. I don't know if you mind sharing that, or what part of that could you share?
Yeah, I'll absolutely share that here in just a moment. But let me explain the weirdness that brought us into this amazing situation.
Okay.
So if this is not evidence of the paranormal / higher power at work, I don't know what to tell you, folks. I was minding my own business on the internet one day, much as I often do. And my sister and I had just recorded our account of our Hatman experience that happened 30 years ago that really did change our lives. And honestly, we sat on that for 30 years because we know how crazy it sounds. So I was on the internet and I thought, is anybody actually doing any solid scientific research about this? I just happened to come across Pastor's website, thehatmanproject.com. I started reading stories and I thought, that's great. I looked on Facebook. He has a Facebook page for the Hatman Project. So I reached out to him and explained to him that I was a researcher who had also had an experience with my sister. And I just wanted to volunteer and see if I could help him update stories on his website. And he said that would be great. He's been kind enough to allow me to tag along ever since. So I've been trying to sort of deal with the social media and the networking and things like that for him, as well as we've designed the world's first survey about the Hatman experience. It's about 120 questions. It's in both English and Spanish. And it's the first survey that's actually ever been done in depth. And some of the things that are being revealed are really remarkable. So about a week after I volunteered and started working on the Hatman Project for Pastor Tim, our wonderful, beautiful friend, Frances McNeil, ciao, she happened to come on the Facebook page, and she was following my TikTok channel, Project U.M.P.R.A, and the RH Negative Nexus. Now, the RH Negative Nexus primarily deals with medical information for RH negative blood types, solid research, not conspiracy. And Project U.M.P.R.A deals with the Hatman, UAP UFO encounters, the paranormal, missing people, and all of the things that are kind of encompassed in there. So she told me while she was visiting the Hatman website, or Facebook page, that she had a Hatman experience. And so we started talking. And I said, that's incredible. Please share your experience with us here on the website. And she did. Well, 2 days after that, I happened to be on TikTok doing a video, and my good friend, Divine Sophia 65, Divine Healer 65, Serena Grace, she happened to do a live video TikTok about the Hatman Project and about how I was about to go on air and talk about it. She caught a live EVP growl immediately after she said the Hatman. And that is the third video, live TikTok video, that we've caught a reaction from the paranormal in response to the Hatman. So Frances McNeil, my good friend, is in touch with a larger part of the paranormal community, and she had some experts, Jeff Schlachter, I believe his name is, of Blue Productions, and he was able to go through all 3 videos and verify that there was in fact EVP layers. So that was 6 months ago. And the paranormal activity that she has picked up, that I have picked up, that Pastor's experiencing, it just all seems to be in direct relation to the fact that things that live in the dark do not like the light of day, which is what we're trying to do. So I'm sorry to go ranting.
Oh, no, that's okay.
That's kind of how we all got into this mess. It's weird.
And I'm surprised Jeff's not watching, because he's usually watching by now.
Yeah. And even Lorraine Warren comes into this, and I have to just mention her for a moment because she was such a great lady.
Yeah.
I wish I could have met her. I had a very strange dream about Mrs. Warren for about maybe 2 years before I even started the RH Negative Nexus.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been mulling over in my mind if I wanted to do anything with that or with Project U.M.P.R.A. I didn't know anything about TikTok. I had a dream about this lady that I had never met and knew almost nothing about, except that I recognized her face from the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in her kitchen, and she looked younger. She looked like maybe she was in her late 40s, early 50s with the little bouffant hairdo she had. She was so cute. And her kitchen had like this bright yellow check plaid curtains and a little tablecloth, very 50s looking, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And she was sitting there brewing coffee, and I'm kind of standing around in my dream going, what's this? And she turns around, and I said, Mrs. Warren? And she's, oh, hi, honey, how are you? Grab a cup of coffee, sit down at the table, let's chat. I'm like, ma'am, I think I'm in the wrong dream because I don't know you. She's like, oh, no, honey, we always end up exactly where we're supposed to be. And she goes, so tell me about your project. And I told her, I know how this sounds. And she says, well, I'll make sure you get to the right people. And then here we are, 2.5 years later with all the right people. So It's been an extraordinary journey. It really has.
Yeah. And that sounds like what she used to do in life is she always told people they were where they needed to be, and she would help them get the right people.
That's amazing. That's wonderful confirmation. Thank you very much.
Yep. Yeah. I never met her either, but the stories I've heard from people who've worked directly with her, that sounds exactly how they've described her to me.
Yeah. I've always admired just how down to earth and humble and just lovely she always presented herself. You know, she just seemed to have a loving spirit.
Yes. And always perfectly dressed.
Yes. Yeah. This lady was perfectly dressed down to the nines. She had little high heels, click, click, click all over the kitchen, everything.
You never saw her wearing a ponytail and no makeup.
Right. Yeah.
I wish I would have met her. Yeah. I'm right there with you on that one. Okay. Some of the questions that I have real quick is, first of all, how do people know that they're actually encountering a Hatman versus a shadow person?
That's a great question. And what we've been able to determine through our survey and through our research, there are certain behavior sets. And one of the data points that we've really been able to focus on is the fact that preemptive to a Hatman occurrence or sighting, many, probably over 75% of the survey so far has said that they were seeing shadow people, hearing strange noises, seeing strange lights in the house. So there does seem to be a connection between shadow people entities, whether they're described as runners or animals or figures, and the Hatman phenomenon. There's also been a question out there too about, well, it's just sleep paralysis. I can tell you, and I'll share my story with you in a moment. No, we were wide awake. We were adults. That was not an illusion. It was not a ghost. It had mass, it had intelligence, and it had intent. And so I always tell folks, you know, there's a majority of people out there that are mentally ill who want attention. There's a majority of people out there that maybe are confusing a bad dream or reactions from medication or sleep paralysis. But then there's this percentage of folks who really have experienced something because it really has changed their life. And you can always tell in the stories because, you know, the people that are kind of milky with that, it's just, oh yeah, I saw the Hatman, blah, blah, blah. But the people that really dealt with it, they don't have that sort of easygoing attitude. This is not your typical paranormal event. This is something other.
Yep. Okay. And Lee wants to know, is the Hatman related to Men in Black?
That's a great question. Now, from my research, and I can't prove anything, that's why it's called research, there's a possibility it could be, and let me explain. So, pre-World War II, there were early experiments going on for a precursor of the space program. And during World War II, the Ahnenerbe, which were the occult science division of the Nazi Party, were working on very similar exotic physics experiments as what's going on to CERN right now. So it has been speculated that perhaps the Nazis or the research that was recovered in West Berlin in 1945 after the fall could have been the basis. Well, we know it was the basis, some of that, for the current CERN program. So has some Men with Goats agency found a way to weaponize the paranormal through technology? Is this a truly paranormal or spiritual attack? Is this a paradimensional entity? Because Pastor and I, for as long as we've been researching, and this is when, I think in 1985, on the Coast to Coast AM show with Art Bell, God bless him, he's a great guy. He had Miss Rosemary Ellen Guiley on, and she was the first person to speak about the Hatman. And there were very significant strides being made in France in 1985 on the CERN project. So the uptick in paranormal activity and Hatman sightings has been visibly increasing since those CERN experiments went into full mode. Now, they started in 1956, but they didn't start making major progress until 1985. And that's when all of this started going up. So that's part of Project U.M.P.R.A's theory, is that perhaps CERN is somehow related to the current situation. But for Pastor, he is really firmly a believer of the biblical perspective of them being watchers. Mm-hmm. So depending on what you believe a watcher is, an alien, an angel, whatever, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and Sam asked, do you think that all of the different types of shadow men, the Hatman, the Runner, the Watcher, etc., are similar are related or similar in appearance?
They are only similar in appearance in that they are negative light, that they're dark. Now, the Hatman experience, this is interesting because part of the survey has 5 different descriptions. There are folks who have seen it looking like a pirate, like Jack Sparrow. They've seen him looking like a Victorian gentleman in a bowler hat. They've seen him in the President Lincoln stovepipe hat, the really tall one. And the most common, though, by far, is the sort of 1940s Gestapo-looking figure with the long trench coat and the fedora hat. Mm-hmm. There is actually in Latin America a huge sighting of the Hatman, but they always see it as wearing more traditional native clothing. So it's very interesting how it presents. And that's something that I actually learned from the fabulous Joe Frankie, was that the paranormal does tend to represent itself differently to people based on their cultural perspective and their personal belief systems, which we have also confirmed through the survey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was actually going to ask you that. Do you think it's, the Hatman coming in a form where that people would relate to, or do you think maybe it's a self-manifestation of they are having this experience, but because of their personal beliefs, they're imprinting what they think it should look like?
No, I don't. I don't believe that we humans have anything to do with the Hatman and how he appears to us. I view the Hatman as an apex predator. Mm-hmm. It's going to present itself to everybody based on what they will understand. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you notice it's always a threatening figure, an authority figure, right?
Yep.
And why children? Since I started my program on TikTok, the Ari Shagan Nexus, I have gotten thousands of letters from parents who are terrified because they've seen it and now their children are seeing it. So there is a multi-generational component to this as well, and possibly genetic, but I'll get into that later. So it's a predator. It's not your friend, which is interesting because there are some folks who have filled out the survey who have said that they've had a benevolent encounter, that they viewed it as a protector. And I'm not speaking against it because that was their experience. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, if a predator wants to feed, it has to make its victim feel comfortable, right?
Yeah.
So that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion.
Yep. Yeah. And actually, Lisa says that she met a Hatman. He told me telepathically his name was Benjamin. I felt he was a member of my family from a past life, perhaps. He had a lot of tenderness for me, but she was petrified.
You know, it's interesting that she said the name Benjamin, because do you know that over 15 people in the survey said that their hat man presented himself as Benjamin? So that's very interesting, because that's a very old biblical name.
Right.
And that's why, you know, for all I know, Pastor's right. It might be that watchers, you know, that there's two groups of them, the good and the evil. I just don't know. It's fascinating, though, because our experience was so awful. It's hard to imagine a benevolent experience, but I'm glad she had that.
Yeah, and talking about the negative experiences, I know we can't believe everything we see on TV or on TikTok, but a lot of people relate that their Hatman experiences happen around some type of, you know, right before a negative experience or a devastation in their life. Is there some type of truth behind that, or?
That's a great question. So that is one of the correlating data points that we have put on the survey. Now, for a lot of folks, yeah, that's the case. He shows up right before everything goes to hell. But for other folks, he shows up after everything's gone bad. And in my case and my sister's, in our Hatman experience, that was the case. Would you like me to share that now?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So I was 27 years old and my sister was 17. And we did not drink. We did not do drugs. We were not dating. We were not into the occult. We were into nothing. We were living in a very cheap 2-bedroom apartment in Portland, Oregon, because within a 4-year span of time, my husband, my only child, our parents, grandparents, everybody in our family had died for different reasons, but they were all gone. So I had full custody of her, and we were just in Portland. We were just grieving. We were just trying to survive. And my sister and I have always been extremely close. And this is another correlating data point on the survey. Over 75% of the folks who have had this experience come from a family with problems: alcohol addiction, drug addiction, abuse of some sort. Very interesting correlation. So my sister and I are living in this apartment. Everything is fine. It's about 3 a.m. We're sound asleep. And we always keep our doors open so that if there was something going on, we could hear the other one. And she had the bathroom right next to her room, and I always kept the bathroom light on so we wouldn't have to disturb each other if we had to get up in the middle of the night. Now, my sister and I are both Rh negative blood type, which is 9 to 12% of the whole human population. And there are some very interesting benefits and unique traits to being an Rh negative. And one of them is more tactile accessibility to psychic ability, and that is simply because of how our red blood cells are designed. I'll get into that later. Anywho, so psychic ability is very common in my family. All my mother, grandmother, they were all Rh negatives, and we all had a minor form of telepathy. We're not beaming thoughts at each other, but you know, we knew what was going on with each other, and we could be miles apart. We'd always pick up the phone right before the other one dialed, things like that. Just real, you know, we call it real-time email. So my sister and I, being close and having gone through all of these traumatic experiences, obviously have a very strong connection, including the psychic. And I was asleep. And I heard her call my name. And for anybody who has children, you will understand when I tell you that if your child calls for you in a certain way, you know. They're absolutely terrified. There is an emergency. There is something going on. And I heard her call my name once. And I was a merchant mariner. I'm a solid woman. So that just means I was a puddle jumper. I went up and down the river delivering people and supplies and cargo everywhere it needed to go. So I'm a solid human being. I heard that. And being on a ship, you know, somebody calls for you, an alarm goes off, you're up and running. And I popped up out of bed and I was running down the hall. A very short hallway. I get to in front of her room where I'm about to turn and go in the doorway. And as I'm turning, I know how it sounds. I bounced off of nothing. I got thrown back so hard into the wall behind me, which was like, you know, less than a foot. I couldn't even breathe for a minute. We were not raised in a religious household, but we've always been very open-minded. But I had no idea. This is 2002, folks. This is before the internet. This is before social media. This is before all of that. I did not know such things were possible. The absolute hatred and rage and evil off this thing, it was just uncomprehendable. And what I saw was a figure that looked like maybe 9 to 10 feet tall, solid black, in the Gestapo style trench coat with the fedora hat. That thing looked huge. The biggest actor you can think of, Rock, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock from wrestling, 5 of that guy would have had no chance against this thing. It was terror and power incarnate. And its eyes were red. I know how it sounds, but they glowed red. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I couldn't do anything. This thing, it looked at me and then it crouched like an animal. Mm-hmm. And there was this weird sort of emotional, empathic connection going on. And the first thing I felt was surprise. It was surprised I was there, which makes sense because according to our research, this entity has some sort of proximity nullifying effect where there can be people sleeping in the same bed and the other partner will never wake up or know anything is going on. So it was surprised to see me there, and then it was angry. It was enraged. I had interrupted it. Mm-hmm. And so it turns away from me, and I can see my poor sister in the bed. Her, covers her up to her nose. All you can see are her little eyeballs like this. She can't speak, move, nothing. And this happened very quickly, like within a minute or so. I know I'm explaining it slowly, but it happened very quickly. And so this thing turns away from me, and it lunges at my sister. So you have to understand, folks, she was all I had left in the world. That was it. And I'm not trying to make myself sound heroic or anything, but when you are at that level of loss, you don't want to be there if the last thing that's going to be taken from you is the only thing you're holding on to stay alive, right? And that's where I was. And so I saw it go for her, and I think it was like an adrenaline rush, from pure love. I was able to shove off the back wall, but it was like trying to go through thick air is the only way I can describe it. I mean, it took force, and I'm not a small woman, to go through the doorway. And as soon as I crossed the doorway threshold, because it looks to me like this thing has landed on her or is about to land on her, the most incredible, beautiful white light exploded from like the right hand side of the room, and I threw my arm up and went like this. And the last empathic impression I got from the Hatman was, oh shit. And then absolute terror. It was terrified of the light. And then poofta, it's gone. The light's gone. And my sister and I were actually light blind for about 15 minutes. If you've ever had like a flash go off in your eyes and you're blinking, it was like that for 15 minutes. We couldn't even see properly. And the minute we did, we left the house in our pajamas, drove to the nearest Sherry's, and drank coffee and ate pie until 10 a.m. because we were too scared to go back to our house. Thank God we've never seen it again. We have no idea why it showed up. But again, as I said, with the RH Nexus on TikTok and Project U.M.P.R.A, I've gotten hundreds, if not thousands, of emails from folks who have kids who have also seen this thing. So there is something going on. Yeah.
Yeah, it almost, some of the stories that I've heard remind me, I don't know if you've seen them. What's the name of the movie? Knowing?
Is that an old Nicolas Cage movie?
Yes, where all the aliens came and were gathering up the kids because they knew the Earth. I mean, even though I know it's not the same thing, but it reminds me of that because he's targeting kids.
No, and that's actually not a bad analogy because I'm working with someone on the East Coast who's an ex-Marine. She's an ex-police officer. She has a small team of 3 Marines who are currently in service. One of them, who is a police officer in charge of a division in Philadelphia involving missing children. Now, everybody is blood tested when they're born, so they know your blood type. Now, your doctor might not know because it's buried in the paperwork, but they know.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever a child goes missing in the United States, they pull up their social security number and they enter them into the National Database for Missing Children. Everything about that child and that case is entered into that database. All the interviews with the parents, the neighbors, any suspects or felons, anybody involved, all of their medical information as well.
Mm-hmm. And
this gentleman looked into the database for me, and he said, what I noticed was that 70% of the children in the database have their blood type listed. And then there's this mysterious 30% that do not. And he started digging a little deeper, and he found out that some of those cases were Rh negatives. Now, I don't know if that is a valid link to what's happening with the Hatman, but I can tell you that there is definitely some genetic components going on with people who are experiencing this phenomenon. I'm not sure why. So it's another area of speculation, and that's why Project U.M.P.R.A kind of encompasses the whole tamale, because it's just so weird, Who knows?
Right, exactly.
It may not have anything to do with it. I don't know.
But it doesn't hurt to think, because you don't, theories and hypotheses don't get proven unless you look into it and test it.
I actually had a chance to speak with author David Paulides of the Missing 411 series. Do you know who he is?
Yes. Yeah, I actually had him on my list of questions for you.
He's a doll. He's a fantastic researcher, solid as the day is long. And he does updates on Can-Am Missing 411 on YouTube all the time. So I had the opportunity to speak with him for just a few minutes at a Bigfoot conference a few years ago in our local area. And he encouraged me to keep on with my research, because a lot of the data point sets that are in his data for missing people in parks are in my data with Project U.M.P.R.A with Hatman visitations. So it's very suspicious.
Yep. And I found that interesting because you had mentioned that in the information you sent me. And then also, how closely related do you think the Hatman is to Skinwalker Ranch?
Wow. 100%. Just my opinion, and nobody pays me to think. But a lot of the activity historically and currently that's going on at the ranch also, oddly enough, is occurring around the Hatman Project. So one of those things involves frequency, and let me explain. I try to give folks a little bit of help and encouragement, especially when they're emailing me about their babies. And there's as odd as it's going to sound, there's a certain set of things that seem to help. One of those is called suffragio frequencies, which you can look up on YouTube. And they come in 8 and 10 hour music reels. The parents have been following my suggestion to make sure that they're playing music at night at 523 hertz, close to 600 hertz, and in an 8 or 10 hour reel, loud enough for the kids to hear it, but not loud enough to keep them awake. Something about that frequency seems to disrupt the negative paranormal. I can't prove it yet, but they're writing me emails and they're telling me it's helping. We also, and this is especially from pastor, we encourage them, whatever faith they are, to pray with their children at night before bedtime. If there's a paranormal or Hatman issue going on, we also tell them to leave the doors open, all the bedroom doors open. Leave a light on in the hallway or the bathroom so that they can see it. And I know it sounds odd, but if the child has a closet, put something heavy enough in front of the closet at night that it can't open. I can't tell you, at least 3 dozen of the children I've interviewed have said that this thing comes out of the closet. Monsters, Inc. kind of stuff,
That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the heck it is about the closet, but, and it seems silly, but at least it gives them a little comfort, if nothing else, But the praying is really important. Keeping the lights on is really important. And the music is really important.
Yep. Yeah, anything to comfort them at night.
Yeah.
And it's tough when you're dealing with, luckily my son never had experiences, but it's tough dealing with kids.
It is, because you don't understand what's going on. How are you supposed to explain it to your babies?
Right.
And And it's really insidious that it would prey on children specifically.
Yeah.
Over 85% of the people who filled out the survey, they saw it, and now their children are seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not by coincidence. That's by design. This thing has intent,
Right.
and it's evil. So
Yep.
there's some sort of agenda there. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. And some of the most heartbreaking cases I've had is they either been with children or really old, seniors.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're the most heartbreaking
Yeah. And
cases.
I always tell the parents, right off the bat, that the negative paranormal starts with you evaluating your home.
Mm-hmm.
No judgment, but the negative paranormal feeds on dysfunction. So if there's alcohol, drug addiction, if there's any kind of abuse going on in the house, you need to deal with that like grown folk and go get therapy or rehab or something, because it uses that as a way to feed and then keep access open to your children.
Mm-hmm.
So even, that's just my opinion, but we have seen that time and time again.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And it's so good that you guys are keeping track of all these different data points. And I know with my paranormal research, I keep track of like the weather.
Yeah.
Do you guys keep track of that when the Hatman appears?
That is another data point that matches up between Mr. Politis and myself. So my sister's experience, and I was on a dark, stormy night.
Mm-hmm.
And many of the significant paranormal experiences we had previous to that, they didn't involve the Hatman, but they were all in that same weather pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Politis has plenty of evidence showing that a lot of his abductions, right afterwards, there's a strange weather anomaly. The animals don't react. There's no smell, no sound. And that is true for the Hatman experience. I want to say something about that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
No smell, no sound. It's like an atmospheric bubble, a proximity bubble surrounds the area where this thing is operating. Even the animals don't react. Like they don't even know it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting that it has enough power to do that.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And the weather too. I mean, it's like one thing that I want to start now that I'm back in Florida, I want to start researching is there's always an uptick in paranormal activity when a hurricane's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be one of two things. It could be either people are home and they're not usually home to notice it, or it could be the storm bringing it with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Yep. So, and Lee said, Hatman told me telepathically I was pregnant and that I will have a child. And she didn't have any children. She's 40. It seems that it was different for him, past, present, and future.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea, too, that we've been kicking around in the back rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Is this some sort of time traveler that is coming back in time and trying to alter timelines or events by interfering with certain folks? Yep. Because some of the people who answered the survey, the ones who have the more benevolent encounters, their Hatman is giving them warnings, letting them know certain things are about to happen. And usually it's benevolent, but not always. So there's a real interesting cut there. It's hard. That's why it's hard for me to pin and say, well, the Hatman is, because there's so much other data that goes along with it that doesn't make a lot of sense, Right. I don't know anything.
Yep. And Lee, I see your comment, German heritage ? I'm not sure what that was. You're nodding, so Yeah.
I'm
not sure where to pinpoint that to in the conversation, but
so I one of the things I've done on both the English and Spanish, and the Spanish version of the survey is curated to Latin America and Spanish folks, but the English version of the survey has probably 10 questions about genetic background, what peoples you descend from. And the reason we're asking those questions is we wanted to see, is there, particular populations, that are having more of an issue with this than others. Now, I don't know if it's by coincidence, and a very small sampling. It's only 140 people so far. We're hoping to get it in the thousands if we can get some help. But of that 140 people, over 70% of them had Celtic or Germanic heritage. And of the 140 people that answered the survey, 27 of them were RH negatives.
Okay.
Now, when you consider how much of a drop in the bucket the RH negative population is on the planet, kind of suspicious. I don't know. So that's why we need that survey to get out there and get those bigger numbers so we can get a better idea. But there does seem to be some cultural connections of one type or another.
Yep. And I know, actually, just talking to, I don't know why I didn't think of it sooner, but a friend of mine that I used to investigate, he's out in Vegas. He's told me several stories where he's encountered the Hatman on investigations. And I
Oh,
think at
really?
one point he said it almost feels like he's being followed.
Yeah. And that's a question that we put on our survey. You know,
Mm-hmm.
do folks feel like this thing is tracking them or following them somehow?
Mm-hmm.
About half the folks said no, they didn't think so. But a small percentage, about 27%, said, you know, I really do feel like either with technology or some
Mm-hmm.
sort of supernatural ability, this thing is following me. And those folks are usually the ones who were experiencing a lot of paranormal activity before it showed up, and
Mm-hmm.
then continue to experience activity after it showed up.
Yep.
So,
Yep. And Jeff finally woke up. So Jeff, hey, he's
good
here.
morning, Seth.
He
I
said he had
mentioned you.
he said he had a question, but he said
Yeah.
he'll behave this morning because he usually is causing trouble.
Cause all the trouble you want. We love you anyway.
I know, exactly. I tell him it makes for a funny show.
It does. It does. Get spicy. It's all good. We got
It's
thick
like
skin around here.
I had a group of people on a couple weeks ago from Georgia Paranormal Investigations, and they all know Joe Frankie. So Jeff's
yeah.
like, he's like, I need to test their credibility. Ask them who loves Joe Frankie.
Everybody loves Joe Frankie.
Exactly.
I don't know anybody who doesn't love Joe Frankie.
Yep.
If you don't love him, get off the planet.
And Joe's usually watching, but he's getting some tests done this morning, so he's not available to watch. Otherwise, he'd be here too.
We're praying for his good health.
Yes, exactly. Lee said, he put my head on my stomach. I felt a burning sensation, but no pain at all. Then I touched his head like a blind person would do, and he had no hat anymore. He was totally bald, and his skin was smooth.
Thank you so much, Lee, for bringing that up. Gosh, that was a really important aspect of our personal experience that I left out.
Mm-hmm.
When that thing leaped on my sister, she said for a brief nanosecond, when that light hit the room,
mm-hmm.
she said the Hatman illusion fell away. And what she saw was a being that it looked like a clay golem. Its skin looked like a claymation form. It is sort of a greenish gray. She said there was no mouth, just a slit. There were no ears, just a slit. The eyes were still red, but it had no hair and no clothing. So that's again why I kind of teeter-totter on the idea of what it is, because that same sort of entity has been described in many UAP UFO encounters.
Yep. Yeah, I was just one of my questions later on is, do you think that it's an alien being or a non-Earth being that uses the Hatman appearance to cloak themselves and make them more comfortable for us to see?
Well, like Pastor would tell you, he believes it's a watcher. And that depends on what your definition of a watcher is. Is it an angel? Is it an alien? Is it a spiritual being? And that's the same for the Hatman. We don't know specifically what it is. It just seems to fit a couple of categories. And for all we know, all those things are the same thing. We just don't know what we don't know.
Yep.
So I personally, I'm more comfortable with the term paranormal entity or paradimensional entity, simply because it's not a ghost. It's not a ghost. It is an entity with intelligence and agenda of some kind.
Yep. And I know this is going to sound weird, but it's a shame we can't capture ghosts like in Ghostbusters, because catch them and interrogate them.
Yeah, right.
Who are you? Why are you here?
And I'm sure because you're a great researcher and a known figure in your field, that there are hauntings that are just electromagnetic recordings of an area because of maybe the physical topography. Maybe there's a lot of crystal in the area. Sometimes it's an active, intelligent event, but there's a difference, and it's hard to discern that difference of what you're dealing with unless somebody like yourself goes out and really investigates it.
Yeah.
And there isn't any way to hunt the Hatman, believe me, because I will never stop hunting that thing. I got a fire in me that'll melt the sun.
You can't go out like Bigfoot.
You can't crap it. No, and you wouldn't want to, believe me. But yeah, there's no way to hunt this thing. The only thing we can do is try to collect stories, try to give people comfort, and that's all we can do.
Yep, exactly. Okay, Sam asked, recently I was told by someone with a Hatman experience that he was or was associated with the Archangel Cassiel. Have you come across this before?
Yeah, and that's where Pastor Tim Brown Jr. comes in, owner of the Hatman Project, because he really is a person of the Bible and the Christian perspective, and he really does believe it's a watcher, which he believes are angels, I believe, and so that is not surprising to me. That's a very common theory that we have, and for all I know, it could be right. There's supposed to be dark and light angels. So,
Right.
and that was the other thing I wanted to say very quickly about the light that we saw. And I could be completely wrong, but I didn't see an angel. I didn't feel like I would assume that if that was my creator, I would have felt that connection. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instantly. Because I've had a spiritual experience before with the Lord. So I kind of judged it by that. But that's what was really tripping me up about our experiences. Neither of us felt like that was, from upstairs as a Holy Mary save or a Hail Mary save. Maybe it was, but it didn't feel that way. It felt other.
And you actually, you have my mind thinking. I'm going to be doing a lot of research today.
But
that's what I like about this show, is I can talk to so many people, and then I spend 3 or 4 days researching. But that white light, I mean, you said that the entity was afraid. If it is of alien being, maybe it was the ship being like, "Hey, bud, you're in trouble."
Yeah. I told Pastor, I don't know if we're somebody's pet genetic experiment, or if God just felt sorry for us and said, "Please save those dumb girls." I don't know what happened there, but there was no reason for us to be attacked, and there was also no reason for us to be rescued. And what really drives me and my passion for my research is I'm terrified it'll happen to my sister's family,
Yeah.
And I hear all the stories from little mamas and daddies about what's happened with their kids, and it just drives me nuts. So that's what keeps me going, is just trying to find something to help people.
Yep. Well, I still have a lot of questions. Do you mind sticking around for a little bit? Okay.
No.
We do need to take a quick commercial break. I'm a little behind on that, but
no, we could do that real quick.
Okay, we'll take a commercial break, and we'll be back in a few minutes with some more questions.
All right, great.
Paranormal Party. Based in Wisconsin is a small paranormal investigation team that believes in the stigma of those who believe in the afterlife. Paranormal Party strives to bring positive energy into all their investigations. They have investigated several locations, including haunted homes, jails, asylums, schools, and more. Every team has a tale, so let Jamie Lynn, Joe, and Kasaya share not only their experiences, but also their stories. Paranormal Party. Contact them today. Just search Paranormal Party WI online.
Hey everybody, welcome back, and Philomena will be back in just a moment. I'm sure she ran to grab something to drink, but keep going on with your questions. This is a great conversation, so looking forward to it. And like I said, I have a ton of more research that I am going to be doing. And again, Pastor Brown's not feeling too good, so that's why he's not here, but we will definitely have him on again in the near future. So what you drinking?
Coffee, the nectar of the gods.
I need more coffee. Definitely doing that. Well, there were a few, I'm like all tangled here. There were a few other comments that came through. Sure. Jeff said a good friend of his swears that a Hatman saved his child's life by waking him up and his child and had stopped breathing, because his child had stopped breathing.
That is something we've heard on the survey too. You know, that's what's so strange, is there are benevolent occurrences of the Hatman. And it does seem to involve the point of death. There was actually, so I do hospice care, and I worked all the way through the pandemic. And I was caring for a gentleman in his 90s in hospice care who was about to die. And 3 days before he died, he had a Hatman experience. So that's very interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then Lee says, Hatman had a very aquiline nose, very masculine. He was gentle with me, nothing inappropriate at all. And after that encounter, she became obsessed with alien abduction and had a huge depression shortly after.
That makes sense.
Okay. And one of the questions I had that I forgot to ask earlier is, do you feel, believe, or have proof that the Hatman is either the same entity visiting everybody, or are they different entities but just categorized under the Hatman identity?
That's really interesting. Now I haven't had a chance to speak to the pastor about this, so I can't speak for him.
Okay.
But I myself have often wondered, what other being described seems a lot like the Hatman is the Mothman,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
So again, is that a different appearance based on cultural perspective, maybe native indigenous perspective or something for that area?
Mm-hmm.
Because of the famous Silver Bridge collapse, that area was once home to the native indigenous. So that's, we've even found a creature called the Ilang in the Filipino islands. There's a great author, Anna Maria Manalo, and she just did a book with Tom Conwell, who is a UAP pattern researcher that I was privileged enough to speak with. And the Filipino islanders have pictures of a thing that looks like the Hatman on their cave art that we know has been dated back to at least 6,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say.
Yeah, interesting. And then your cat behind you just reminded me. Have there been any stories of people? I mean, I know the animals can't give us their accounts, but any stories of, like, how they come for children, that they've come for their pets?
Yeah, I have not heard or seen any stories personally where they were involved with coming for people's animals. Where animals come in is, this is really interesting. The dogs don't ever seem to be alerted that anything's there, but the cats do. Maybe this is why the Egyptians worship them. But the cats are the only creatures that seem to be alerted somehow to its presence. I don't know.
Yeah, cats are very noticing of stuff. And dogs, like if they did have, like you said earlier, a bubble around them and they were silent, a dog wouldn't notice that, but a cat might, because cats go off of sensation. I think cats are more psychic than we are.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like I say, we have accounts where the wife or the husband wakes up and sees this thing and their partner is right there and doesn't wake up, nothing, and they're screaming, they're hitting them, which is also another concurrence with UAP encounters. Mm-hmm. So again, hard to say.
Yep. And you brought up Egyptians, and that kind of gave me another question is, how the ancient alien theory, where they say, some of the different hieroglyphics show that there was are there any hieroglyphics that you know of that depict what a Hatman would be?
So interestingly enough, and I have a live happening this Sunday on TikTok with Our True History on TikTok. He is my good friend, and he specializes in Sumerian history.
Okay.
He's in London, England. And he says that he has some hieroglyphic evidence that would suggest that the Hatman or something like it has been described before. And that would make sense, honestly, because as I say, every native indigenous culture seems to have some version of this thing, right? So maybe it's been here and our ancestors have dealt with it before, just in a different form.
Yep. Yeah, it almost makes me want to go back to Nevada and Red Rock Canyon to look at the petroglyphs again to see if I missed something.
Yeah. There was one that somebody shared with me from Utah, and it was a beautiful, and it's on an area where you can't go unless you're with the people who live there. Mm-hmm. But it was a rock face. It was like 6 black fingers that went down like this, and then it was red eyes, and I was like, "Oh, I need to go see that, please."
Let me know how to get there.
Yeah, please send me a ticket.
Exactly. That just, it kind of makes me. I might have to sign up for TikTok. I've been avoiding it, but I need to watch some of your shows.
Well, so may I bring this up very quickly? So this is an occurrence that has happened in the last week, this phenomenon, and I want to bring it up for a reason. Mm-hmm. So when we're out, dealing with our investigations and our research, the downside to that is that sometimes it really does start affecting your real life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have had the RH Negative Nexus TikTok channel for 3 years, and on that channel, I primarily deal with RH negative medical information. But I also shared, our updates and our work and stuff with the Hatman Project.
Right.
5 days ago, I was on a live. I had like over 8,000 people. I'd been on there for 2 hours. All of a sudden, my phone, which was completely charged, goes dead. Cannot start it back up for over an hour. When it does pop up, what shows up is an image of the Hatman from Ghost Seer, which is a ghost tube app on the Play Store. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Mm-mm.
But the way Ghost Seer works, it's an AI program that allegedly receives information from whatever entities are nearby and then electronically creates a portrait picture in order to communicate. Sort of the next level of the ghost box, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this perfect silhouetted figure of a Hatman shows up on my phone. So I shared that on TikTok, and I shared a couple of update videos where we caught some EVPs and some really strange video glitches going on. And then 4 days later, yesterday, my account was completely gone, deleted. They never gave me a warning. They never gave me a chance to download my videos, although I have most of them. And there's no reason to do that. I'm nobody, okay? I have no published work. Nobody has any idea who I am.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. The Hatman Project, though, is gaining steam. Mm-hmm. But it was just very odd that all these paranormal things start happening and then the TikTok channel is gone. So I'm starting from ground zero, which is why I'm so grateful to my friend Serena Grace, Divine Healer 65, for streaming this on live TikTok, because you have to have 1,000 followers on TikTok or you can't broadcast.
Right.
So it's been very interesting. And then Pastor gets really, really ill this morning, along with a few of his children, right before this podcast. Very suspicious timing from the negative paranormal, I would say.
Yeah. You wouldn't believe how many times I've had people had to cancel because, they're supposed to come on and talk about something and they're sick the morning of. And it's like...
Yeah. Pastor was so excited. He felt so bad. I just want you to know he felt so bad.
If it happens again, then you guys know there's a connection.
I'm telling you. Yeah.
So we'll definitely reschedule you and we'll test that theory.
Thank you, because I would love to have him a chance to represent his own work,
Yep, no, not a problem. And I wanted to also bring up, you had mentioned earlier that you guys have been capturing strange EVPs when talking about the Hatman. Do you think that it's the Hatman trying to get people to shut up, essentially? Or is it the paranormal entities around them that don't like the Hatman expressing their opinion?
Right. No, that's a great question. I personally wonder, because a few of the EVPs we have caught seem to be directly referring to the statement, the Hatman or the Hatman Project. Serena Grace caught 2 videos of that. I caught like 4. And if I were going to evaluate predators, I would say that the Hatman is definitely the apex predator of the paranormal world, for as far as I can tell. So I think what's actually going on is that the negative paranormal is upset that we are bringing attention to the public sphere about the Hatman, because like anything evil with intent and agenda, it thrives in darkness. So when folks are out there talking about it, it's bringing attention to something that, most people will blow off as, oh, that's just sleep paralysis or imagination or something. If people were, as they gain consciousness about different issues going on in the world society, they start reacting and doing things about them. So I kind of think it's like that, as the Hatman Project is gaining steam, more of these paranormal events are ramping up because the negative paranormal does not want attention placed on them. I got a big mouth. What can I do?
Yeah, and it's funny because I always joke, I have sleep paralysis that I experience quite often, but I've never had a paranormal experience during it.
Yeah.
And so it's like I'm one of the medical conditions.
Yeah, right.
And you would think with what I do, it would be more paranormal related, and it's not.
Right. Well, I have heard from some of the kids on TikTok. They're saying that they're having these Hatman experiences when they're using Benadryl or something else. Maybe they are. Maybe there is a certain way that you can have or experience the Hatman if you are under the influence of certain, pharmaceutical drugs or what other drugs, just because it changes your level of consciousness in the brain.
Mhm.
So it's interesting. It's interesting. It's hard to say, but I know that what we saw was a very physical being. This was not a mental thing going on.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and Lee just commented, alien abduction of Greys a lot of times will have a Hatman in the background. Seems like he's directing the abduction.
Right? Isn't that creepy? And that's where the creepy men with 3-letter agencies who stare at goats comes in, because it could be possible that the Hatman entity is a paradimensional entity or a time traveler who is working in connection with these other beings. But aliens can also be demons. I mean, can also be fairies. All these words and descriptors that humans have used throughout civilization to describe the other can all kind of be applied here. So that's why you really got to keep an open mind about it.
Yep, exactly. You did send me some photos. I don't know if you wanted me to share them.
Yeah,
I
please
put them on
do.
a slideshow so we can go one at a time.
That would be great. These are Pastor Tim Brown Jr.'s from the Hatman Project. These are his photos that folks sent him along with their stories. These are real photos. And my good friend, Jeff Schlachter and Mrs. Frances McNeely were kind enough to go through and digitally, with their experts, examine these photos. And they said these were authentic as far as they could tell.
Mm-hmm.
That's just something from the internet.
Yeah, that's what I figured on that one.
Yeah. That's real. Yeah. That's real. This young man was at home with his friend and they were just messing around taking photos, and this showed up.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
That's a tough one, right? Because you can see the visual distortion around the edges of the figure.
Mm-hmm.
And usually, if something is photoshopped or placed in an image, they're gonna, you can mess around with them a little bit, but some of that is hard to discredit, and I rely on the experts to tell me what's real and not. So
yeah, because I know, I mean, just as a when I do my analysis of photos, the first thing I would look is his position is similar to how the man is sitting in the couch, but has no arms, so it's not really a shadow. And if it was a shadow, you'd have the couch behind it, not just the silhouette like it is. So yeah,
right, yeah, it's kind of a tough one. Yeah. This one's hard to see, unless you can enlarge it on your computer at home, but you can clearly see some kind of strange form there. And I mean, to me, it does have the cast of a man in a hat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting coming from a fire.
Right? That's also a toughie to try to dismiss.
Yeah. And Jeff says you need to look for new experts. He's a fraud. He says that Jeff guy's a fraud.
But he's an entertaining fraud, so we'll keep him.
Exactly. Yep. He's going to be on my show in a couple of weeks doing his fortune telling.
Oh, good. Good. This is one that really creeps me out. This is a tough one for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
So you see this little gal's getting ready for bedtime, and you see that thing in the corner, and then you see the orbs. Now you folks are the expert on orbs, and those could be dust, of course, but yeah, that's a creepy one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was taken on a security camera. Again, and we have the larger photo so we can see, the close up, the whole photo.
Mm-hmm.
There is nobody in that room. Nobody. There's no reason that shadow should be there.
Okay. And Kenneth actually commented on the last photo. He said, "This is how I encountered him as a child, corner of the room."
Oh, yes. Shout out to my good friend, Archbishop Kenneth Torres of the Warren Legacy Foundation for Paranormal Research. Outstanding individual, former Marine. Semper Fi, buddy. And outstanding human being. He has been really helpful in some of my research with Project U.M.P.R.A and the Hatman Project. He's been lovely.
Cool. And
yeah, that one. Yeah, that one. So that, again, we looked at the larger picture. Um, it's a little tougher because it is cast over the front of him.
Mm-hmm.
So, somebody could be standing off to the left, I suppose, but it's odd that those two were not reacting to it in any way, and this is an old photo. I mean, this was dated in the 70s. So we were
Right.
like, okay, this is an older photo,
And even though in the photo he looks like something you would expect from A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, yeah.
And it is Christmas, but it's one of those things where it's like, why aren't they dressed up if they're having a themed Christmas party?
Right, correct. And that description, that physical image right there, that is one of there's 6 different sort of physical images that I put on the survey. We talked a little bit about that Jack Sparrow, this is more the Victorian top hat gentleman that many people describe. And that's the other thing too that we noticed in our research, because I'd asked the question on the survey, was the Hatman holding anything? Did he have a tool or a book or anything? There's only been just maybe, I think it was 3 cases where they described it as holding something, an object of some sort. Almost never is the Hatman described as holding any kind of an object.
Yeah, almost would expect him to be holding a cane.
That's what I would have expected too, but yeah, no.
Yep, and that was the last one.
Okay, yep.
There we go. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to, I looked at him briefly, but I need to look at him closer. I'll put them under my microscope.
Yeah, if you have passed around, we'll share some more with you.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
And I already asked that question. Oh, you had mentioned the survey. Now, when I tried to share the survey link that you gave me in the email, it said that it wasn't available. Is it not open or?
Yeah.
Because I was going to share the link. Okay.
Google Forms is what I use to make that survey, and it's really helpful, but it's a bit tricky. So I will go back and make sure it's published and working, and then email it to you again. Maybe you can help me, because I've posted the link for both the English and Spanish version of the survey in the promo video I did for the show.
Okay.
But yeah, I want to make sure they're actually working. If for some reason those links don't work, please know, folks, that you can actually join my Facebook page, the RH Negative Nexus, or the Hatman Project Facebook page, and just let me know, and I will email you a direct link. Sometimes with Google Forms, I actually have to email people the invitation to fill it out.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Google's weird.
Yeah, it's a pain.
Lee says what surprised her the most about the Hatman was he was a total black figure, as if he was absorbing the light, similar to a black hole.
Yeah, and that's how it's always described. And I know that when we saw it, we didn't have any lights on other than the hallway bathroom light. And that thing was so black. It just, it stood out very clearly, even in a dark room. It was incredible. It was incredible.
And Lee said that it looked like he was wearing a Frosty the Snowman Hatman in that Christmas photo.
A bowler hat.
Yeah.
That's one of the descriptions that a lot of folks describe, is that Frosty the Snowman look.
Yep. And Jeff, he's heard typically he wears an I Love Joe Frankie t-shirt.
Everybody loves Joe Frankie, even the Hatman.
And I do have just a few more questions, and then you can feel free to share anything you want along the way in case I missed something. But you had mentioned earlier the RH blood types. Is there any type of specific research that you're doing towards that, and any type of other correlations besides what you had just mentioned?
Yeah, so RH negative blood type is a little bit different. And it comes down to the design of our red blood cells. So in RH positive blood types, there are things called antigen proteins. They determine your traits, your big nose, your red hair. And for RH positives, those are on the outside of the red blood cells. Now, for RH negatives, we are the only ones who possess the D antigen protein, and it is on the inside of our red blood cells, which actually gives us greater immunity and resistance to both COVID-19 and AIDS. This is because of the CCR532 delta gene mutation, which offers greater immunity. So one of the things that started happening with the RH negative nexus, and I was connecting with other RH negatives, a really obnoxious percentage of those folks were having Hatman encounters and really interesting paranormal experiences. And that was why I started digging in a little bit there to see if there was a difference between RH positives and their Hatman experiences or RH negatives. I don't want to upset folks, but there does seem to be a generational component based on certain genetics. So one of the things I do on my channel is I dispel the rumor that RH negative blood type is a white people thing. That is not true. The largest group of RH negatives on the planet are melanated. The smallest group of RH negatives on the planet are Caucasian. The only reason that I can't think of the name now, the one country in Europe gets so much attention is because there's Basque, is because they're so concentrated there.
Mm-hmm.
But RH negatives are in every population on the planet except the Asian population, where they have less than 0.5%, and we're not sure why. But RH negatives are actually more sensitive to EMF, electrical, and radiation energies, and that was proved by Harvard. Harvard University did a cytokine study about 10 years ago where they took red blood cells from RH negatives and RH positives, and they blasted them with those three energy forms. And the RH negatives responded very differently. That's why if you're an RH negative and you have cancer, they have to modulate your chemotherapy according to which RH negative blood type you are because of the reaction difference. So that's why I'm investigating that end of it, because I don't know, for such a small population of people on the planet to be having that many experiences and then for it to be multi-generational seems odd. And it may not have anything to do specifically with RH negatives, but it's one of those lines of my research I'm exploring to find out if there's a difference, because it just came up so much in my TikTok channel and was totally unexpected.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then I think you mentioned it earlier, but I'm not sure, but you said most of the Hatman experiences were occurring in Latin America, or what country do you think has the most?
The Latin Americans are having a huge explosion of those experiences. It's happening all over the world. But they are having a huge explosion of them. And the problem is that, white folks don't like to listen. It's our worst thing. And nobody ever talks to those folks, and tries to communicate with them about that. And of course, there's cultural differences in how they perceive things. But, they're not stupid people, and they are seeing something, just like everybody else. So that's why we tried to design the Spanish version of the survey, because they are a massive population here in the United States, our brothers and sisters, and in Latin America, and we need to work with them because we all have a common enemy, or at least a common problem. And, I hate to say it, folks, but America's been around for 30 seconds, okay, give or take. All of Latin America and everywhere else has been around forever. So we need to go talk to the indigenous folks who have retained a lot of their oral history and who maybe can give us insight into what's happening.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would love to get get an opportunity to sit down with like a Native American and get the stories that have been passed on by their family.
Can I bring that up for just a moment? So I've been blessed to have a few Native Indigenous people here from the Americas, who, by the way, the largest group of RH negatives in North America, Canada, and Alaska is O negative, and it is the Native Indigenous. 80% of them are O negative blood type. Isn't that interesting? They're also the largest group of people that are going missing.
Yep.
And that may very well be connected to their RH negative blood type, because it is big money on the black market for all kinds of reasons. RH negative blood can't be cloned or grown in a lab, and our blood organs and tissue are never rejected.
Right.
So, yeah. But they have been kind enough to chime in on the Hatman Project occasionally with me on TikTok, and if I had the money, I would be so happy to talk with them, go out there and talk to the different communities. I Zoom with everybody that I can, but they have their own thoughts and theories about what this thing is.
Yep. And even Leah commented earlier, she said just now that she's O negative, but earlier she had said that there's a correlation between O negative and possible alien creation behind it.
Yeah, so that's there's a couple of theories about where Rh negative blood type came from.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And that is because even after 100 years of the Genome Project and tracing down human genetics, we still cannot find a definable moment in either the archaeological or anthropological record when we appear.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't know where we came in or how we came in. And we are clearly a hybrid of some sort because Rh negative little mamas have an allergic reaction to their babies. If their babies are Rh positive, they have to have an immunosuppressant shot, which is Rogan.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, their body treats that baby as a different kind of human, like an invading organism, and it launches a massive immunological response to kill it. It's called Rh incompatibility.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know where that comes from. It's killed millions of babies and little mamas. And so I really like what, Robert, I feel so bad. Anyway, he is somebody who investigates Rh negative research. Mm-hmm. And he said, if we really could look at the full diorama of human history, it probably looks more like Lord of the Rings, and less like our town, Mm-hmm. So it's just, there's just all this stuff we don't know, but we know that there was a megalithic culture. That evidence is all over the world. There was clearly a pyramid culture at one time. It may be that Rh negative blood type stems from the previous culture, and most of humanity was wiped out in the last great apocalypse. Perhaps we're just genetic survivors of that previous civilization. Mm-hmm. We know that human genetics mutate all the time based on the radiation, ecological impact, all kinds of things. So perhaps Rh positive evolved from Rh negative or vice versa, who knows, in response to the differing environmental conditions of the planet. Mm-hmm. Or maybe we're aliens. I don't. We're humans of some sort.
Sam wants to know, have you found a correlation between experiences with the Hatman or other shadow men and an awakening of psychic or spiritual gifts? Not that the experience causes them, but that it happens while or near when gifts are awakening.
Yeah, we have seen a correlation with that. Many of the folks that I've spoken to said that, there was the correlation of a lot of negative things going on in their life, a lot of stress, anxiety, depression. They have this experience, and then they have a sort of spiritual awakening. And for many people, it leads them closer to their chosen faith. But for even more people, it seems to activate a certain psychic frequency where they become more sensitive to things going on in their environment. So I don't know if that's because of the Hatman or a byproduct of being around it or what, but it's an interesting correlation.
Yep. Okay. And then just a couple more questions. I know it's Pastor Brown's book, but do you know when and where people can get their hands on it?
So The Hatman Revealed is the definitive work being done by Pastor Tim Brown Jr., and that is his Christian perspective as a pastor and experiencer of the Hatman Project and all the research he's done. That we think is going to come out probably sometime in 2024. Pastor is right now writing it. It's not something he's going to charge anybody for. It will be available free on his website, www.thehatmanproject.com. Please join our Facebook page of the same name. Mm-hmm. And please stay tuned because Village Roadshow Films, like I said, is making the first full budget length movie on the Hatman Project.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that was going to be my next question. If there's any idea when that might come out.
No, not yet. No, they're still in the in the working and planning phase. But Village Roadshow Films has been so kind and attentive in even giving us a chance to talk to them because we know how crazy it sounds. So we're very grateful. But they made The Matrix, so they're used to crazy.
Yeah, they put together some interesting things. So
they really do.
You're right up their alley.
Yeah.
Is there
I'd
anything?
really like is to get a few celebrities that have seen the Hatman to do the survey, because we don't ever divulge anybody's name or personal
Right.
information. But like Tony Spera, Joe Frankie, those guys too, I would love it if they would do it, because if anybody has seen the Hatman, it would be those guys, you know?
Yep. Yeah, and I have my feelers out to a few people trying to get responses back, but I've been so busy I haven't even been able to sit down and talk on the phone.
That's all right. You've got your own life and your own show. I understand.
It's been crazy.
Yeah.
And of course, I just keep adding more stuff to my pile of things to do.
Right.
But it keeps me out of trouble. Is there anything that we missed or anything else you want to cover before I let you go?
No, we just really appreciate the chance to come on board and talk with you folks. And I just want to give a big shout out to Pastor Timothy Brown Jr. I hope you're feeling better, sir. Thanks for letting me tag along on your project. I'm grateful.
And definitely, I will reach out to you probably later today or tomorrow, and we can get you guys booked again. And
Great.
hopefully he doesn't get sick again. If not, I'm going to have to question.
Yeah. I know. Well, I think Pastor's going to fumigate his house probably today with some prayers and holy water. Make sure that stuff goes away. I was going to say too, would we be able to have a copy of the show so that we can post it to our social media and share it?
Yeah, we will. I'll talk to Todd about getting that. If not, I know it's on all of our YouTube channels.
Oh, cool. Okay,
and all of that. So I'll make sure that I reach out to him and I can get you the links for the replays on YouTube if I can't get you an actual copy.
That would be great. That way we can direct people to go watch it somewhere at least, you know.
Okay. Right.
So,
perfect.
All right.
Well, thank you so much. And hold on, Todd just responded.
Hello, Todd.
Oh, he can do that.
Thank you, Magic Wizard behind the curtain. We appreciate
He is. He's my Wizard of Oz.
That's right. Everybody needs one.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But again, thank you so much for being on here today. I had a great time chatting with you, and thank you everyone for asking all the questions. And
thank you for showing up.
Yeah, perfect. And we're going to take one more quick break before I talk about some few things before closing up. So you guys all have a hang around. And again, thank you, Philomena. I'm kind of lost my train of thought halfway through talking there. I do that on every show, but we'll be back in just a moment. Hello, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Philomena. She is amazing. Again, sorry, Pastor Brown cannot be here today, but we will definitely get him on, and prayers and thoughts out to him, hoping he feels better and his kids as well. But you know how it goes. When your kids get sick, you're usually the one who gets sick right along with them. And just real quick, a few more things that I wanted to talk about before we left. Let me scroll up to my notes. Yes, what I wanted to start doing is, for those of you who don't know, I am a certified life coach, and I wanted to start a program, and I'm going to be offering, let me get the title correct for you. It is a shamanic life coaching 6-week virtual course for balance and harmony. And stay tuned to my page, the show page, my Dr. Heather Leigh page, or my personal Facebook page, because I'm going to be sharing a Google form in the next couple days. Asking a series of questions, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for 5 people to take that course for free, so that way I can practice, make sure I'm doing it correctly, and to make sure that it is something that people would be interested in. So if you're looking to change different aspects of your life, your work, set goals, the course is going to have everything from daily chats about how to change your mindset, how to cleanse your personal space, different art projects that help therapeutic art projects, which are actually fun to make. And I will also be demonstrating and showing how to do it's a 21-day push to a new new perspective. So we'll be doing that as well as part of that little course that I'm doing. So if you guys are interested, make sure you either reach out to me or keep an eye on my page. I know a lot of people have been mentioning that I've talked to already that they're interested. So I figured the best way to do it is to do a Google form and kind of see who needs it, who's interested, and how it can help change some lives and get you guys back on track with all of your goals and everything there. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is, oh, shoot, those are on last week's notes. Hold on, guys, sorry. Is the scientific method and paranormal research is to take more of a scientific approach to the paranormal. I know we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but what kind of brought my mind to it again was I was on a podcast over the weekend, and Brad and Barry Kling were on the same podcast with me, and we were talking about how science can be used and how it's more than just paranormal experiences. And what I find interesting is I was like a little kid. I hate to admit it when I don't want to say starstruck, but in awe, because when they were popping up in the background for the podcast, they were the ones who, when Ghost Lab came out, kind of turned my perspective in the field. It kind of made me want to take that more scientific approach, that it's more than just getting the information and getting the activity. It's wanting to know why and how and all of that stuff. And we did briefly talk about, no, we can't use the scientific method in the paranormal field exactly as it's designed, but we can still use it. And I want you guys, I'm going to put a test out for you guys, and hopefully next week you guys can give me some answers, or if you have any ideas today. But I want to come up with some different fun experiments that we can test out, and I will test them out throughout the different shows. In between shows, I'll share on my Facebook page the different experiments that I'm doing, photos and videos. And each week I'll talk about, what came out of it and what happened and everything like that. So think of something. The best way for the paranormal field is something that we can easily conduct or create an experiment. And the experiment can be something easy as, I'm trying to think of different things that we've already talked about. But one thing we have on our list that we want to do is how our psychic mind and our psychic thoughts can imprint on digital voice recorders. I'm sure you guys, if you've been watching me for a while, have heard me talk about how we have that one case that we worked on, and the only EVP the entire night was Get Out, and it was actually the client's voice. So it's one of those things where it was, it's kind of like, was that the client putting it on there, or was it an entity mimicking the client? So a couple different things like that. So an experiment that we came up with is an ovilus. I'm not sold on it yet, even though I've had experiences that can't be explained using the ovilus, is to sit there and think. Sit there and think of a word and see if you can imprint that word and have the ovilus repeat the word with not saying anything. But that's one thing that I want to work on. I like that. Hanging a feather in a glass jar and see if it moves. That's kind of like next week I'll have Catherine Sorlios on, and maybe I'll message her ahead of time so she can be prepared. But she's done experiments where she has a piece of paper, like a cork, a pin, and a small piece of tissue paper, and she's put a glass jar over it, and she's actually spun it. So I'm going to have to definitely do that. I like that one with the feather because I've done it with a pendulum before, but I like the idea of seeing if something lighter can be moved. And that's something that can be tested over and over as long as you're thinking the same thoughts through that. So I'm writing that one down, definitely is an idea. So just feel free. You can message me your different ideas, and we'll work on them together. We'll do different thoughts. If you guys want to do the experiments at home too, come back and we'll do that. But I do think we're going to do that feather one first, just because Catherine is on next week. So stay tuned for information on that. I just need to go find a feather. I think I have one at home. So once I get home, I'll make sure I start doing that one. Definitely. But I do appreciate everyone coming by today and watching. I'm, again, sorry that Pastor Brown could not make it, but, things happen. But Philomena was an amazing guest. Cannot wait to have her on again. I love chatting her with you. Ooh, I like that one too. The cards and guess what it is. definitely going to do that one too. Actually, we might do that on the show and see what you guys do. That's going to be fun next week. Definitely. I'm going to write that one down too. I have an idea for that. So we'll definitely do that one. But actually next week is, that's what I wanted to go into. Next week is actually David and Christy from our Haunted Lives will be joining us. I know David was on a while back and Christy was sick. So hopefully Christy is, it's been a couple months, so I'm sure she's better from that flu, but hopefully Christy can be on and we'll have another amazing discussion with those two. David's a lot of fun to talk to, and Christy, she's just an amazing person. And then the week after is Catherine Surlios, where we can definitely dive deep into those things that Leigh just shared. So I'm going to actually cut it to short today because I'm traveling this week and visiting my parents. And one final thing before we go, I wanted to do my tip of the week is to trust your gut and do not think that you can handle everything on your own, because there are things that we cannot handle and are beyond our control. And there are many people out there who know you are not crazy and are willing to help you. So just make sure you reach out and find that right person that is willing to help. And if you can't find someone to help you, you guys know you can always reach out to me and I can get you in the right direction. So with that being said, as long as we're good to go, I will see you guys next week. And I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend and an even amazing weekend.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.
Thank you.